How's everybody doing today? Been a very long year. The music world has been kind of dry since COVID started. A lot of bands haven't been interested in putting out their albums because they've not been able to tour in support of them. AFI is one of these bands who's had that issue. Their 11th release, oddly enough, on June the 11th, was Bodies. AFI is a band who has been around since 1991. They have roots in the sounds of punk music with such albums as Black Sails in the Sunset, emo from Sing the Sorrow, and they've slowly evolved into the genre of pop rock with recent releases such as Burials, Crash Love. They're constantly evolving. They've always found a way to find new ways to present themselves. So we're gonna go ahead, and since this is, one of the earliest albums being released, I guess we can kind of say post-pandemic. I know it's still happening. A lot of people are probably gonna flame for that, but now bands are more willing to do so since they can tour and support. So let's get into it. Let's start with the pros from what I'm seeing from this album. First off, I am a big fan of musicianship. I think that every individual instrument plays a part, obviously, and they all have a piece of the puzzle. The biggest piece of the puzzle on Bodies by AFI happens to be Hunter Bergen's bass. What this man does throughout the entirety of the album is just beyond fantastic. He's very driving, he's very noticeable. He's at the forefront in every song on this album. And, I am very guilty of in the past speaking very poorly of Adam Carson's drum work. And allow me to say that this is the first time I really feel that his drum work mixed with the combination of Hunter Bergen's bass, they've married it up to a point that the backdrop and the foundation of this entire album is very, very solid, very sound. At least those two members of the band knew what they wanted to do and where they were going, and so that push was made, and this is A plus rhythm section timing. With that being said, Jade's guitar playing has evolved throughout the years as well as the band. I think that the evolution of AFI has been really dependent upon how he's playing. And currently and over the last couple of albums, they've went from that aggressive punk style to more of like a mainstream, and now this mainstream has drifted into a more ambient style, spacey, riff based guitar playing for Jade, and it kind of puts you in mind of The Cure, such songs as like Prayers for Rain, just a lot of 80s style Cure has really taken over to this, which to me, I am a huge, huge fan of Robert Smith and The Cure. So I don't think you could take a better possible um, influence from a different band. Again, with some of the emotional lyrics that Davey Havoc and the guys have put forward, The Cure is the obvious choice to who they would want to marry it up with. But Jade's guitar playing has done a great job of creating different sounds. There are even some songs that kind of is a callback to their original punk styles, but songs such as Looking Tragic has this weird classic rock style guitaring that at no point have I ever heard AFI use. They they've never used classic rock to their benefit or really at all that I can think of. But again, another thing that's kind of leaning into their new style, they've brought about adding synth pop, which is extremely welcomed in my opinion. I know that it's kind of the new passing trend, I guess you could say. A lot of people are beginning to add, synth pop or synth wave into everything. It's everywhere you go. It's even in like pop music, like, the Weeknd's latest release with like blinding lights and everything was very, very synth heavy. So AFI's just kind of jumped aboard that train and they're taking a nice little travel on it. But, some of the songs are very great with promoting that, and it's definitely an interesting combination that they have created. Um as far as the cons of this album goes, I've always been a big proponent for Davey Havok. I've always been very, very interested in what they're going to do from album to album. Like the ability for him to sing high pitched, almost like he has a female voice, to this like guttural, like just growl. I mean, you could look into Miss Murder for kind of um a good example as how he can do a little bit of everything. Is just the fact that he goes from one high to one low to, it's just so seamless. But in this album, I don't think Davey Havok arrived. I don't think he knew that they recorded an album. I don't get it. He does nothing special in this album. Everything feels like I'm just going to go into the bass register of my voice and I'm just going to ride it out. He does nothing to extend this style that us AFI fans have grown to love for what, 30 years? 91. Yeah, that's about right. That's math. But we've grown to love this band and we've grown to love Davey Havok, and I just don't think he knew they were recording an album. Um, Something they've done to kind of mask his lack of attempt is they've relied extremely heavily on putting reverb and creating held note melodies so they can add that reverb to make it sound fuller, because without those melodies and without that reverb, it's just one man holding a note, and even the backing vocals just are so uninspired. It's not even sad, really. Um, Also, lyrical content of the albums, such as Sing the Sorrow, December Underground, even back to Black Sails in the Sunset, were always so great. Davey was always kind of a trendsetter and kind of a pioneer of the different types of emo lyrics. And I feel that now that like the emo movement has kind of went on, it's Davey's just not trying in general. I'm not trying to make a video of like 10 minutes of just bashing Davey Havok, but man, where is that dude at? I really feel like he's just putting words together because they rhyme. Like it's just, oh, I'm going to talk about a shoe. Okay, I got the word shoe to end the sentence. I got white shoestrings and the shoe is blue. Blue and shoe rhyme. Guess what? I have a freaking song. I don't really think that's how that works, but that's how he apparently think it works on this album, which is extraordinarily sad. Even though this album, however, is real easy to listen to, some of the songs just kind of blend. That airy, spacey guitar that I do have high praise for, and the reverb, which I've kind of bashed somewhat. It all makes everything just feel the same. There's really not a lot of standing out from what they've done in the past, so it's kind of sad. Um, we'll just kind of go off with as well what I feel were the top song of the album. We'll start with just naming off some good songs and we'll work our way down. As far as the good songs go, Twisted Tongues was a great, great lead off single, an extremely catchy chorus. It's more of like a modern style AFI mixed with like the elder style of AFI. Um, Dulceria is, again, this is what they should be doing. It's very like Cure and synth poppy, and it feels like AFI, but it feels new. Which again, it has a music video for. I would definitely check that out. It's a great, great single as well. On Your Back is a good song. Escape from Los Angeles At first, upon listening to it, it was probably my favorite on the album. But the more I've listened to it and the more I've listened to other songs, it's kind of like it's still good, but it's falling deeper into the pack, unfortunately. The mediocre songs happen to be Far Too Near, Looking Tragic, Death of the Party, and No Eyes. Those are all meh. They exist. Enjoy it, whatever. As far as the top song of the album goes, though, Begging for Trouble has really stood out above everything else on the album. It seems like it's the one that I keep finding myself listening to. It makes me feel, this is what they should be doing, and this is why are we not getting more of this? And sadly enough, again, across a 30-year career for this band, there's a lot of good, a lot of bad. Unfortunately, there are 11 songs on this album, and 2 of them are in contention for the absolute worst songs that AFI have ever put out. Tied to a Tree and Back from the Flesh are extremely, extremely, just for lack of better terms, trash. Which is sad because I was also reading earlier when doing my research about this album that Jade, the guitar player, feels that Tied to a Tree is the best song on the album. I don't know how he gets to that decision, but guess different strokes for different folks, guys. So, as far as a final rating for the album goes, I wanted to at first listen, give it like an 8 or a 9, but I feel like the more I listen to it, the more I struggle remembering song titles. I've yet to have any like memorable lyrics stick out to me, which AFI has always been very memorable in their lyrical content. And right now it's just not happening. Not happening. So, final rating for this would happen to be a 7 out of 10. If anybody was wondering, a large portion of it is because just the lack of Davey Havoc. I mean, he is such a bore. Look what he did to Cassie. She's asleep because she's listening to this. Go back to sleep. But she's asleep because she was listening to his vocal on this album, and it's not up to snuff with what they've done before. So again, 7 out of 10. I hope you guys get a chance to listen to it. You can catch it on Spotify. There's videos for it all over YouTube. I would definitely recommend just listening to it just for the fun of it, especially if you're a fan. So again, if there's anything that you guys would like to hear me review, have my honest opinions of, please comment it, send me a message, do whatever you need with it. Until then, thank you and have a good one.